Would it surprise you if I told you that a team that last season finished near the bottom of the Premier League would follow up that campaign on an insane run that sees them amongst the top of the table, sitting on just about 41 points after 20 games in the Prem? Well, not only was that the 15-16 Leicester City side that won the Premier League with 5,000 to 1 odds, but it's also this current Nottingham Forest side. That's right, brothers, this season Nottingham Forest is on a mission to beat everyone in the Premier League, which is why they're currently sitting so high in the table. This isn't like Chelsea's 4-week title charge or that 11-game run from Everton a few years ago when they had James Rodriguez. No. This Forest side is the real deal this season. Whether they go on to continue the success for years to come is yet to be seen, but regardless, that doesn't matter when we're looking at the here and the now. Having literally been on the brink of relegation for the last 2 seasons in a row, Forest realistically find themselves in a title race. And that might sound funny, especially if you still haven't been convinced by these guys, but let's say Liverpool did bottle it, then there's a chance Forest take the Premier League. Just to put it into perspective even more, when Leicester City won the Premier League after matchday 21, they were second place with 43 points. As of recording this after matchday 21, Forest are in third place with 41 points. So who's to say there isn't a chance? Although the circumstances around Leicester City's Premier League victory were a lot better than Forest this season, they do find themselves in a position to be able to capitalize should anything happen to those around them. The turnaround for this club has been absolutely spectacular this season, and they 100% deserve credit for the season that they're having. So we need to take a look into what happened at Forest that's allowing them to go up with confidence against everyone this year. And real quick, boys, if you're new to the channel, enjoying the content, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're dropping weekly football videos, so make sure you hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss an upload. And if you're not new to the channel, boys, welcome back. Glad to have you around for another video. With that being said, boys, let's get into the incredible season that Forest is having thus far. So if you're a non-believer with this Forest side, then it's probably safe to assume that you probably aren't familiar with the players that are dragging this team to glory. So let me introduce them to you. It's only right that we start off with the 2 absolute man mountains that they have in their back line, Nikola Milenkovic and Murillo. These 2 defensively are out there looking like Maldini and Nesto for freaking Nottingham Forest. And I wouldn't say it's a case where these 2 have magically become world class and fit into any single team in the world, but rather they've become a fantastic no-nonsense duo that isn't scared to go up against any attack in the Premier League. Milenkovic specifically was brought into the Forest side this year from Fiorentina to help address some of the aerial issues that their backline was facing last season, and boy has he done his job. So far this season, Milenkovic ranks very highly across center backs in all of Europe when it comes to his aerial capability. Murillo, on the other hand, has benefited a ton from the club bringing in Milenkovic, because now he's able to focus on the aspects of his game where he really shines. Murillo this season ranks highly among center backs in Europe this year when it comes to shots blocked and clearances. These 2 each have their role in the back line, and as they both excel in these roles, Forest have only conceded 20 goals this season, on par with league leaders Liverpool and only beat by second place Arsenal. By this point last year, Forest had already conceded 38 goals. That is an 18 goal difference because they changed one major part of their back line. That is insane. And if we take a look at the other side of the pitch, we find an attack that has been very efficient this year. And notice I say efficient because Forest hasn't been scoring a ton of goals and they're not tearing teams apart by scoring 4 or 5 goals on them, but they've been incredibly lethal when they get the opportunity to be. And of course, in order to get goals, you need service, and for striker Chris Wood, who we'll get into in just a second, this has been coming from Malanga, Hudson-Odoi, and Morgan Gibbs-White. Hudson-Odoi and Malanga are quick and technical wingers who oftentimes find themselves pushing Forest forward on transition and pinning the opponent wingbacks into their own half. Gibbs-White usually finds himself roaming in and exploiting the spaces that are left open by the opposition, and is more often than not the one that's playing his teammates in behind. Amongst these 3, they've contributed 9 goals and 10 assists in their campaign so far, which has been a good boost to the results. But of course, we then have the main man Chris Wood up top. At the age of 33, Wood has found himself very consistently scoring goals for Forest. So far this season, he's been able to rack up 13 goals in 22 games. And the funny thing is, he actually finds himself in the upper echelon when you're looking at strikers across all of Europe when it comes to his goal per shot ratio, which means if this guy was getting more opportunities, who knows how many goals he would have. He has absolutely rolled back the clock and has come up with massive goals that have helped keep Forest pushing to see just how far they can go. If you even give Forest one opportunity to punish you, they won't even think twice about it. And it's been these players who have allowed Forest to get some massive results this season, which have been instrumental in finding themselves at the top of the table. And usually when sides out of the ordinary find themselves amongst the top of the table, it ends up feeling like a fluke in one way or another. You know, they'll find themselves bullying the teams that are the bottom half of the table, but will struggle once they come up against any kind of decent opposition. But that really isn't the case for this Forest team. After 21 league games, it's hard to consider them a fluke, especially when they've been able to prove themselves in bigger matches. Firstly, Forest are the only ones to beat Liverpool this season. Out of all the top teams, United, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle, Spurs, none of them have been able to beat Liverpool, but Nottingham Forest did. When they met earlier at Anfield, Forest would hold Liverpool to just 5 shots on target while registering 3 themselves. And it would be their main man in goal, Sells, who came up with 5 saves to earn a clean sheet, and the previously mentioned Hudson-Odoi, who would get a goal off the bench. This game was early on in the season, but it was really defensive masterclass as Forest would also mitigate Liverpool's front 3 entirely, and they were never able to really get going. This probably should have been an early indicator the Forest were going to be on smoke this year. And let me remind you again, this is the only game that Liverpool have lost this season. Forest were also able to get a result at Stamford Bridge, where despite whatever form Chelsea's in, it's always a tough place to go away to. Chris Wood will get a goal in this match, which would prove to be enough to get a draw as a 10-man Forest side saw out the result. And granted, Newcastle, Man City, and Arsenal did catch Forest slipping, as they did lose to these guys pretty convincingly as well. And these results were really the creative forces in the attack, which just pretty much mitigated the entire match, and they would just generally get outplayed on these days. And don't look at me like I'm crazy because I'm hyping these guys up and they lost these matches pretty convincingly. I didn't say they were invincible or anything, I just said they're on fire. But despite this, they did also manage to beat United 3-2, Aston Villa 2-1, Spurs 1-0, and more recently drew against Liverpool 1-1, which means that this season Liverpool were not able to beat Nottingham Forest, and they're probably going to go on to beat every other team in the league at least once. Think about that. In these games that I just mentioned, Chris Wood would score 2 goals, Alanga would score 2, Milinkovic would score 2, and Gibbs White would score 1. So you can see why I specifically said it's these players that are heavily contributing to the success of Forest. And mind you, while they're getting results like this pretty convincingly, they're also beating the teams that they should be beating. So they're really maximizing the amount of points that they've been getting this year. So long as they keep this mentality, who's to say they won't just keep on racking up wins? And in order to maintain a mentality like this one, all eyes will be on the man who has made most of this possible, Nuno Espirito Santo. After taking over the club in December 2023, Nuno had the responsibility of keeping them alive that season. But prior to his appointment, Nuno's stocks were at an all-time low. Following his anticlimactic exit at Wolves, Nuno would end up at Spurs. It would be there where the Tottenham curse got a hold of him and he would pretty much crash and burn. He had an abysmal start to the Premier League with Spurs and the board pretty much gave him no time. After less than 4 months, he would be sacked, and I felt like maybe his time coaching in the Prem was done. And as would be the trend, he would go to Al Ittihad in Saudi Arabia, where he did manage one successful season where his side would win the Saudi League title. However, the following season would be an utter disappointment and he would again be sacked. I felt like his career was in tatters, but Forest would take a chance on the Portuguese manager, as they had just sacked Steve Cooper and really needed a hero. Well, for Nuno, he would be able to achieve this objective for the club, be a hero. On the final match day of the 23-24 season, Forest would beat Burnley 2-1 and managed to just about stay in the Premier League. So over the summer, Nuno would clear out a lot of the dead wood at the club and bring in players like the aforementioned Milinkovic to really get his vision going. Nuno so far has instilled 2 major principles into this side. First, discipline. As I said, this Forest team has hardly conceded any goals, and a lot of that comes down to Nuno Espirito Santo's system and how much these players have bought into it and have been defending as a unit. Nuno's a pretty pragmatic coach, and with this Forest side, they've been able to set up and handle whatever the opposition is throwing their way. Of course, like I said, this team is not perfect and they've had their slip-ups, but for the majority of the season, and as we've seen twice against league leaders Liverpool, Forest are pretty rigid when it comes to their defensive shape. Secondly, Nuno has instilled a winning spirit into this team. Despite the fact that most of these players just about survived their relegation battle last season, through the success found in his system, Nuno has created a belief amongst these players that they are able to go toe-to-toe with any side in the Premier League. League leaders in Liverpool, no problem. A Wash United side, no problem. Arteta's Stoke version of Arsenal, no problem. They will go into any match from now on with the belief that they can get a result out of the match, regardless of if they do or don't. This is super important for any team to have, but let alone a side like Forest who has suffered so much and is finally in a position where winning a big prize is now a possibility. Nuno has really worked miracles with this Forest side and the results are starting to show. And similar to what I was saying with the players, is not to say that Nuno Espirito Santo is now the most sought after manager in the world and he should be going to a big club next. Not at all. He is just working with the players that he has, getting the most out of them, and the results are showing up. But with this Forest side, the sky is really the limit. Who is to say they don't end up winning the Premier League? There's a possibility. So long as the players stay healthy, there is a good chance. I will say, if Chris Wood goes down with an injury, if either of the center backs go down with an injury, or if they start to kind of rack up injuries in the midfield, there might be some problems. Specifically though, that back line. Because Forest aren't scoring a ton of goals, if something were to happen to either the center backs or to both of them, they could be in trouble. But so long as they stay healthy, there's a chance. No one thought Leicester was going to win it until they won it. And they could also benefit from the teams around them still being in Europe. Liverpool could go on a deep Champions League run, which will tire them out. Arsenal could go on somewhat of a deep run in the Champions League, maybe quarterfinals, and that'll tire them out. Who's to say Forest, whose main focus can be on the Premier League, don't lock in and just win every game from here. Like I said, no one thought Leicester was going to win it until they won it. Call me crazy, but there's a chance. Do I think they're going to win it? No. I think Liverpool's probably going to see out the rest of the season. I don't see them slipping up, but there's a chance.